Tonight on First at 9, this Wednesday, the 5th of June 2024. Adverse weather continues. 21 lives lost due to inclement weather. Relief operations underway to rescue people affected from floods. Confident, Sri Lanka will emerge out of bankruptcy by the end of this year, assures President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Trade cooperation, double taxation avoidance pact between Sri Lanka and Maldives to conclude soon. Sri Lanka eyes tourism collaboration with Maldives. We accept. Amendments to the electricity bill will be made as per Supreme Court determination, says the Power and Energy Minister.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9 with Indivari Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us tonight once again on First at 9 with the very latest from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Tonight too, we have a number of developing stories and developments here at home. Start with the weather update. Torrential rains prompted severe flooding, earth slips and landslides across the island, severely affecting the lives of 253,581 individuals in 13 districts. Adverse weather has displaced over 10,000 individuals who are currently being housed at 154 relief centres across the island. Against this backdrop, the Disaster Management Centre said that cooked meals and dry rations are currently being distributed to the affected, and also revealed that the funds allocated have increased in accordance with the directives of the State Minister for Defence and Disaster Management, Pramitha Bandara Tennakoon. Meanwhile, the Sri Lanka Navy announced that it successfully rescued 316 people affected by floods in a number of areas today.
Water levels of some rivers in the southwestern part of the country reached spillover levels due to the persistent heavy downpours caused by the southwest monsoon. The latest data released by the Department of Irrigation revealed that the water capacity of the River Kalani has started to subside, while a minor flood situation is noted in the Nagaland-Vidya area in Colombo. However, high water levels of the River Kalani resulted in flooding in several areas including Hangwella, Sitawaka, Kaduwela, Biyagama, Kolonnawa, Kalanimulla and Sedawatta. The Irrigation Department advised the residents of Gampaha, Jayala, Katana, Wattala and Minuwangoda areas to remain vigilant as the flooding of the Attanagaluoya River basin is likely to further develop in low-lying areas. Meanwhile, the Gampaha area continued to remain submerged due to the overflowing of the Attanagaluoya. The high water levels of the Nilwala River resulted in minor flood situations in the Talgahagoda and Panadugama areas. Torrential rains led to the further inundation of the Aturaliya, Kamburupitiya, Akurassa, Tihagoda, Malimbada and Mathara areas. Additionally, the Millakanda and Patupaula areas remained submerged owing to the overflowing of the river Kalu. Flooding in the Nartupana and Palapitiyagoda areas of the Tebuana Road in the Dodangoda Divisional Secretariat continued to inconvenience the public. Similarly, minor floods were also reported from the Baddagama area following the spillover of the Ging River. As the adverse weather patterns continued, the Sri Lanka Navy revealed that 316 people affected by floods in Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara, Ratnapura, Galle and Mathura were successfully rescued as of this morning. Several landslides were also reported in areas across the country. Taking the current situation into account, the National Building Research Organisation issued landslide warnings to 8 districts. Meanwhile, 15 families were evacuated to safe places following a landslide reported in the Galkanda area in Puakpitiya. The evacuees are temporarily sheltered at Puakpitiya Primary School and Kirivandala Pirivana in the same area. According to the Disaster Management Centre's report, a total of 253,581 people belonging to 66,906 families in 13 districts were severely affected by the inclement weather. The DMC also stated that the number of lives lost due to the inclement weather patterns currently stands at 21. Presently, 10,737 people are sheltered in 154 relief centres across the island.
At the moment, 21 deaths been reported in, especially Colombo been affected heavily. Ranathanpura and Golmatara Kalutara districts were heavily affected due to the bad weather situation. Around 9,000 people still they are in the safe locations. All the cooked meals and the dry rations will be provided. Who may be trapped, they have been given the dry rations as well. And the amount of the money allocated for the cooked meal and as well as the dry rations been increased with the instructions of the state minister. And also the search and rescue missions been still carried out with the support of the Triforces and the police.
In view of the floods caused by the prevailing incessant rains, all schools in the Ratnapura, Kuruvita and Ahaliyagoda divisions in the Ratnapura Educational Zone and the Alapatha and Ayagama divisions in the Nivitigala Education Zone will remain closed tomorrow. Concurrently, the Southern Province Secretary of Education stated that all schools in the Gaul and Mathura districts will reopen for academic activities tomorrow. The Department of Meteorology meanwhile forecasts a temporary abatement in the downpours during the coming days.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
ජීවිතේ හැම තැනකදීම ස්මාර්ට් වෙන්න පොලිය විතරක් ගෙවාගෙන යන්න CDB Smart Draft.
And while highlighting that the country is yet to come out of the woods, President Ranil Wickremesinghe assured that Sri Lanka will be able to emerge out of bankruptcy by the end of this year. The president reiterated the government was able to stabilize the country's economy in 2 years as it distanced itself from party politics during a crucial juncture of the collapse of the country's economy. The head of state made these comments while addressing a meeting in Kegol.
A public meeting at the residence of State Minister of Finance Ranjit Siambalapitiya in Ruanvalla was held this afternoon under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe.
We accepted the responsibility of a government at a difficult juncture. However, we worked according to a proper policy. We gained the trust of the IMF. We stabilized the economy in 2 years. We had to take difficult decisions. The decision to increase the VAT was never easy. However, we were confident that we would be able to turn around the situation within 6 months. Even though we were blamed, we did that. For the first time, the government was not aimed at conducting party politics. The government had members from all political parties who believed that it was possible to work together. If not, how can I become the president with a single seat in parliament? I asked everyone to unite. However, some members didn't. On 9th of July, some members urged me to resign. However, the governance of the country could have collapsed if I had resigned. Both the country's political and economic systems collapsed. We lifted the country to its present level without engaging in party politics. However, the opposition, which is continuing to follow the old tradition, is continuing to level their accusations. When they have nothing to claim, they say that Elon Musk is a killer. There is fuel and fertilizer available in the country now. However, the country is yet to come out of the woods. Before the end of this year, we will be able to come out of bankruptcy.
Visiting Maldivian Minister of Foreign Affairs Musa Samir says that his government expects to conclude the agreement on the avoidance of double taxation between the Maldives and Sri Lanka in a bid to promote trade and investment between the two countries. He made these comments while addressing a joint media briefing with the Sri Lankan Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri at the Foreign Ministry premises today. Meanwhile, Minister Ali Sabri said that Sri Lanka can collaborate with the Maldives on the development of tourism and transformation into renewable energy.
Maldivian Minister of Foreign Affairs Musa Zamir arrived in Colombo on Monday, beginning a 3-day visit to the island nation. Today, he called on his Sri Lankan counterpart, President's Counsel Ali Sabri at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Following the media, both foreign ministers addressed the media to explain the outcomes of their discussions.
We discussed extensively on the deepening cooperation in the aviation sector, especially on enhancing air connectivity. Both our countries being Indian Ocean littoral state, we discussed the need to collaborate in the fisheries sector. We share our views on provisions of transit passage for Sri Lankan fishing vessels for smooth access to Arabian Sea and further means of cooperation. I also briefed the Honourable Minister regarding the initiative taken by the Government of Sri Lanka in policy development on climate change and the environmental issue. We discussed on collaboration in the transition into renewable energy. I propose collaboration in the solar energy and offshore wind energy sector as a means of enhancing energy security and sustainability for both our countries. During the discussion, I proposed that the tourism in an area where Sri Lanka could partner with Maldives through collaborative initiative for the benefit of both the countries. We agreed in building partnership through investment in the tourism and leisure sector and strengthening the cooperation in mutually beneficial areas. We discussed on matters of further collaboration with special focus on countering terrorism and illegal narcotic operation in the area. I reiterate the great importance that Sri Lanka attaches to maintain safety and security in the Indian Ocean.
We are grateful to the government of Sri Lanka for reaffirming the terms of a bilateral agreement on short-term visa up to 90 days for the nationals of both countries on the basis of reciprocity and providing concessional terms of resident student visas. Mr. Sabri and I agreed that much more need to be done to promote the trade and investment between the Maldives and Sri Lanka. In this regard, we hope to conclude the agreement to the avoidance of double taxation and on promotion of protection of investments between our two countries at the earliest. Both of these will facilitate trade as it will ease the burden and risk of doing business in both our countries. I conveyed that President Dr. Mohamed Muiz, upon recommendation from his cabinet, has decided to submit the text of the treaty between the Maldives and the government of Sri Lanka on mutual legal assistance in criminal matters to the Maldives Parliament for approval. The treaty provides a framework for mutual support and cooperation in combating criminal offences.
Later in the evening, the Maldivian Foreign Minister met with President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Presidential Secretariat in Colombo.
Also in headline news tonight, the government will accept the amendments recommended by the Supreme Court in relation to the proposed Sri Lanka electricity bill. Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara assures that the bill will be taken for debate in Parliament tomorrow as planned. However, several parties, including the Sarva Jana Balaya Political Alliance as well as the Ceylon Electricity Board Engineers Union, claim that the bill still contains provisions that are a threat to the country's sovereignty and that it must be defeated in the House.
In its ruling on the petitions filed against the proposed Sri Lanka electricity bill, the Supreme Court determined that the bill contains a number of clauses that are inconsistent with the Constitution. While announcing the court's decision, Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapa Abeyewardena informed the House that these clauses shall only be passed by a special majority in Parliament and that one clause would require approval through a referendum. However, it was also announced that the bill could be passed with a simple majority if amended as specified in the Supreme Court's determination. During Parliament today, Minister of Power and Energy Kanchana Wijesekara stated that the government will accept all amendments specified by the Supreme Court.
අපි ආණ්ඩුව වශයෙන් ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණ ඉදිරිපත් කළ තියෙන හැම සංශෝධනයක්ම පිළිගන්න අපි එකඟ වුණා. හෙට දවසේ නියමිත ආකාරයට අපි විවාදේ පවත්වන්න කටයුතු කරනවා.
In the meantime, the Sarva Jana Balaya Alliance launched a protest in Battaramulla against the electricity bill.
Even if foreign companies only control 20% of the country's electricity network, they can disrupt the whole system by shutting off their power plants. Therefore, it is clear that control over 20% of the power grid is enough to control the whole country. Despite that being the case, this bill does not contain provisions to limit the extent of the power network that foreigners can control. Furthermore, the bill allows a single person to gain control of the energy sector through multiple companies.
බලශක්ති ක්ෂේත්‍රයේ සමාගම් ගණනාවක් කරත් අනුපුද්ගලයෙකුට පාලනය කිරීමේ හැකියාව මේ පන්තර ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. විදුලි වල ක්ෂේත්‍රයට වෙනස්කම් අවශ්‍යයි. ඒ වෙනස්කම් අවශ්‍ය නම් ඒ කළ යුතු ආකාරයක් තියෙනවා. ඒ පනත් වල අන්තර්ගතය දැක්කම අපිට හොඳටම පේනවා. මේක ගෙනල්ලා තියෙන වෙන වැඩකට මේ රටේ බලශක්ති අර්බුදය විසඳන්නවත් එහෙම නැත්නම් ජනතාවට සහන ලබා දෙන්නවත් නෙමෙයි කියන එක.
The Engineers Union of the Ceylon Electricity Board convened a media briefing to address the issue.
අපි දිගින් දිගටම ප්‍රශ්න කරපු දෙයක් තමයි මේ පනතේ පාරිභෝගිකයා හා විදුලි සේවකයන් ඔසලකා හැරලා තියෙනවා.
We have continuously raised several concerns about this bill. The first is that this bill completely disregards the needs of consumers and electricity workers. Secondly, it contains clauses that endanger the country's sovereignty. Finally, this bill has been highly politicized. The Supreme Court has recommended an extensive list of amendments for the bill. However, in Parliament yesterday, the Minister of Power and Energy downplayed the extent of these recommended amendments. Now Parliament has decided to hold the debate on this bill tomorrow. Why are they in such a hurry to pass such an unconstitutional bill? We ask the members of the opposition to ensure that this bill does not pass.
Well, congratulating Prime Minister Narendra Modi on his election victory, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena said Sri Lanka is committed to exploring new opportunities with neighbouring India. He made these comments while addressing Parliament today. Meanwhile, opposition leader Sajith Premadasa called on parliamentarians to support a resolution to make India a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. In the meantime, the salary anomaly issue of non-academic staff of universities was taken up for discussion.
As a close South Asian neighbour with deep friendship, strongest ties, Sri Lanka is committed to work together with India to overcome challenges and explore new opportunities for enhancing cooperation for peace and people across the world. I look forward to continuously work with Your Excellency to further promote the strong, long-standing bilateral ties that are built on the foundations of shared belief and principles.
I would like to, at this juncture, while congratulating Prime Minister Modi, propose from the Sri Lankan Parliament that India should be duly made a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. I'm pretty sure that the 5 permanent members who are there right now would have no objection to establishing this world power reality in the United Nations structure. We would like to continuously have a very close relationship with India, and we would like to have a strong, productive and constructive relationship.
It is disappointing to see the current state of the country's university system. Severe issues have been created as a result of the strike conducted by the non-academic staff of the universities.
All of you seated in the front row were unable to solve these problems. With regard to the salary anomalies, we held a discussion with the Treasury. I will also hold a discussion with State Minister Shehan Semasinghe and officials of the Treasury. Following that discussion, we will also discuss with the trade unions with the intention of arriving at a conclusion.
I chaired 4 discussions during the past 4 days. We have received letters stating their demands. We will consider them. We hope that we will be able to arrive at a favourable solution soon and recommence operations within the university. I cannot provide a complete assurance because the Treasury too has to fulfill its part.
Manusat Derana continued to provide relief to the people affected by heavy weather for a 3rd consecutive day today. Accordingly, dry rations were distributed by the Manusat Derana team among people affected in the areas of Kaduwala, Kalanimulla, Kalaniya and Malvana both yesterday and today. Dry rations were also donated to the Kaduwala Sri Sumedarama temple in Vallampitiya to be distributed among people affected in the area. Further, dry rations were also donated to the Sanasa Bank in Vallampitiya to be provided to the people who are temporarily residing in relief camps. The program is carried out by Manusat Derana in partnership with Dialogue. Welcome back. We take you to business news now. United Petroleum Australia Proprietary Limited has entered into a contract with the Board of Investment of Sri Lanka, bringing in an investment of $12.5 million as part of its agreement with the Ministry of Power and Energy to supply petroleum products to the Sri Lankan market. The agreement was signed by United Petroleum Australia's incorporated company in Sri Lanka, United Petroleum Lanka Private Limited. CEO and Director of United Petroleum Lanka, Dr. Prabhat Samarasinghe, said the company plans to invest $300 million in the Sri Lankan petroleum market within the year.
United Petroleum Australia entered into a contract with Sri Lanka's Ministry of Power and Energy to supply petroleum products to the local market on 22nd of February this year. The Australian-owned petroleum retailer and importer has been assigned 150 fuel stations across Sri Lanka and has also been given the right to build 50 new fuel stations.
The initial investment will be $12.5 million US. However, within a year, we expect to invest around $300 million US. We do not intend to go into a price war. However, we intend to give many benefits to consumers going forward. When it comes to quality, we intend to import petroleum products that are being used in Australia. We will probably begin operations by late July or early August.
And at the Colombo Stock Exchange, stocks continue to surge with a positive momentum during today's trading session. The broader all-share price index closed at 12,189, gaining 85.45. High net worth and institutional investor participation was noted in John Keells Holdings, Nations Trust Bank and National Development Bank. Turnover stood at 1.2 billion rupees with a 38.51% increase from the previous day. The banking sector was the top contributor to turnover, whilst the sector index gained 1.03%. The capital goods sector was the second highest contributor to turnover, whilst the sector index decreased by 0.16%. Net foreign outflow was recorded at nearly 105 million rupees. Now, senior analyst of Capital Alliance, Diluk Shademel, joins us now with a few thoughts to round off our economic outlook segment.
Sri Lanka's treasury yields edged higher at this week's auction, with the 3-month T-bill rate increasing 7 basis points week on week. We saw bond yields slightly edge upwards by 10 basis points across the yield curve as a result. Average weighted prime lending rates fell 32 basis points to 9.68% as lending rates started adjusting to the expected policy rate cuts. Inflation for the month of May 2024 came in at 0.9% year-on-year, mainly due to the fuel and LPG price cuts imposed during the month. Going into June, we expect vegetable prices to increase owing to the adverse weather conditions, but likelihood remains for a downward electricity tariff reduction, which could negate the upward food price movement. Government revenue for the first 2 months were up 41% to 647 billion rupees, whilst overall expenses marginally reduced, resulting in a primary surplus of 269 billion rupees for the first 2 months of 2024.
Also in news overseas, US President Joe Biden has instituted a broad asylum ban on migrants caught illegally crossing the US-Mexico border, a major enforcement move in the run-up to the November elections that will decide control of the White House. The migrants caught crossing illegally could be quickly deported or turned back to Mexico under the measure, which will take effect in just after midnight. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security said there will be exceptions for unaccompanied children, people who face serious medical or safety threats, and victims of trafficking. Biden, a Democrat, has toughened his approach to broader security as immigration has emerged as a top issue for Americans in the run-up to the November 5th elections, where he will face Republican Donald Trump, who made a hardline stance on immigration a centerpiece of his administration and vowed a wide-ranging crackdown if re-elected. And that's all from us here tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow at the same time. I'm Indivari Amwatta. Good night.